Paul.
Hey, Fab, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Yourself?
Good.
Cool. So today we decided to go back a bit in the weeds of sales success, let's call it that, and talk about objections. I'm sure it's something we've talked about here and there in the past, but maybe not a whole episode on it. So obviously there's different types of objections that happen at different moments of your sales process. Obviously I'm guessing, at the beginning it's more like I don't have any problems, I don't want to talk to you type of thing. And and then later on towards the end it's probably more more some resistance, but maybe objections more related to resistance and more fear of purchasing or whatever. So how about you walk us through a bit the type of objections that you can encounter and then how to manage them or how to deal
Sure.
with them.
Well, it's interesting what you said, because you're right. According to where you are in your sales process, the objection changes, right? At first it'll be, I have no time, or everything's okay. And you're right. And really, listen, I think when it boils down to any objection, it's all about one thing. It's all about just letting the person talk and explaining why and lowering resistance. So regardless of what the objection is to say, okay, I hear you. Could you tell me a little bit more, right? So obviously it's the beginning of the process. They say, look, I just don't have time to talk to you. Well, then you can say, okay, it's fine. I respect that. When would be a better time to speak? So that's an original objection. Or if, everything's going well, let's say we're talking about someone who's trying to sell a process or a product. Everything's going well, we're very happy. Well, there too, it's just, oh, look, that's great. Can you tell me a little bit more? I just want to learn and find out about your business, and then see if there's opportunities when you're speaking to them and asking open-ended questions.
Opportunities for what?
Well, then you just counter that objection by asking them to tell you a little bit more about it, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, if we role played it, and you said something to me like, let's say I was a salesperson, I said something to you like, you said, hey, Paul, everything's fine. Let's say I'm a TV sales repairman, and you say, hey, my TV works great, or I'm a TV salesman, let's just say. And you say, oh, my TV works great. I love it. It's awesome. And you say, well, I'm very happy for you. Tell me a little bit more about your TV. And you say, well, I got to get up and turn the channels every time I want to change the station. And, I got to pedal on my bike to get the TV to turn on, So you're basically listening to the person, and then you're creating opportunity. And you can say, hey, is there any way that tell me how your TV could be better? Well, if I didn't have to get up to change the stations, so I'm making it very obvious and silly and human for our conversation.
Can I just interrupt you there about the TV example? Because I think it's obviously it's a little silly, but it illustrates the point. So let's say, somebody says, you ask the person, how can you make your TV better? How could your TV be better? And they said, honestly, it's all good. I'm really happy with it. And would you then kind of go into more suggestive type of question? Well, kind of like, well, are you happy with the fact that you have to get up every time to go change the channel? Or do you kind of leave it?
If I was a TV salesperson, yes, I might do that, particularly if he has to get up to change the station. But I might say, how could your TV be better, right? Like, what can make it better? If the person's totally happy, then you're just then it's not an objection. You're just disqualifying. Because there's a fine line between objection and being qualified too, right?
Because I know, if I obviously have my marketing hat, and I know in the marketing world, sometimes you're like, well, people don't always necessarily know what they want, right? And the typical example is kind of this iPhone, people didn't know they wanted the iPhone. Everybody was happy with their Blackberries. Nobody was really like, oh, I don't like typing on a keyboard. In fact, a lot of people were pushing back on the iPhone, saying there was no physical keyboard. And there's always that old example, I think, is attributed to Ford. Henry Ford saying, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. You know what I mean? So they don't always, you kind of don't know what you don't know, right? Obviously, the TV example is a little silly. I'm guessing most people know it. Anybody listening to this anyway knows it. You don't have to get up and change the channel anymore. But, you don't always know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
as a prospect. I mean,
Yeah, and that, look, that's not an objection. So let's stick to objections. So let's go further down the sales process. When
yeah,
someone says something to you, like there's a lot of them, right? But if someone says, I need to speak to my people about this, or I need to speak to the committee about this, or I need to think about it, or I want to shop around. They're all objections, and you need to know how to handle them. Well, all of those objections require you to do one main thing, which is to ask an open-ended question.
Mhm.
And the first one, if you need to speak to your committees, okay, tell me more about that. Well, I need to convince this person, that person. Okay, that's great. And of course, if they have to pitch it to a committee, then your next question should be, well, can I come and pitch your committee with you? Can I pitch it to your committee with you? And most people will say probably no. I need to do it on my own. And the ones that say yes, it's great. You go with them and you do you have a conversation with them. But when someone says, well, no, actually, I need to do that on my own. Sorry, my allergies are bad. When someone says, I need to do that on my own, the first thing you need to make sure of, is this an objection? Is he telling you he's not interested, right?
Mm.
So how do you do that? You could straight out ask him, well, are you interested? How are you going to sell this thing to your people? Or you could say something to the effect of, well, if you had to make the decision, what would it be? Right? So that's one objection.
If you had to make
And
the decision, what? Sorry, I didn't hear the last part.
if you had to make the decision, what would that decision be?
Oh, okay.
So then you'll know his answer and his position. And if the person's not keen on your product, you'll find out, and then you can talk about that. Well,
Yep.
actually, I like everything you've talked about, but I find your price is a little expensive.
Yep.
And again, so you're telling me the price is expensive. Tell me more about that. You're just trying to find out why they have an objection or what that means. You need to know what the next actionable item is and how you can help that next actionable item.
So I think you touched on one of the major objections that happen later in the sales process, which is pricing, right? Like, oh, you're too expensive, or some variant of that. So would you approach that the same way, saying like, oh, tell me about that, or would you kind of try to take a different approach?
Well, if someone says, oh, I want to shop around on pricing, I wouldn't say, tell me more about that. It's quite obvious.
Sure.
I want to know more about the price. What I'd probably say there is, oh, price is very important to you. Can you tell me why?
Yeah.
Right? It's a little different.
So let's say they're like, oh,
I can get your product for the same price somewhere else, or I have only a budget of $5 and you're asking me for $5.50.
Yeah. So then you're asking like, why is pricing important? So like different people have different realities, right? And they already have. Some people have budgets that they really can't move, or they don't feel like going at bats to try to get more budget and stuff like that. So kind of like depending on what you get from there, like you get some sort of an answer, like, I don't have the budget, it seems a little out of my range, it's more than what I was expecting to pay, or something like that. Like what's the next step after that?
Well, you've said it all, and so person's out of my range, or I don't have the budget. You need to ask them, can you tell me more about that? Can you tell me why it's out of your range? What were you expecting to get? What is your range? Like you just want to deepen that conversation. You don't want to challenge it. You want to deepen it.
And
that other really handsome guy that came on there when you were off the camera.
Yeah, I don't know who that was. I haven't seen him in a while.
I like his haircut.
Yeah, this guy's getting a haircut on the 16th. Definitely. Woo-hoo! Counting down the days. I forgot what I wanted to say. Yeah. Yeah. So basically, okay. So then it's just, I feel like, I don't know, because I know we talked a lot about earlier on in some of the early episodes about, not selling value, but quantifying their problems and stuff like that. And how should I say? It seems like, everybody has a price tag in mind, right? I mean, sometimes you go in and they're like, yeah, that seems fair. That's what I wanted. Sometimes you go in and you're like, whoa, this is way more than I was expecting. And, you tell me more and this and that. And then sometimes you realize, like, they're just having a hard time assigning value to that project. And so, like,
Well,
I guess my question is,
you're,
how deep do you go in this objection handling, like fact finding? Like, at some point, you just say, like, listen, this is the price and that's the price, or do you always kind of like try to go backwards and try to see what you could do and so on?
the minute you get any objection, whether it's price or time or value or whatever it is, you need to go back and dig more into that issue. You need to understand why that issue exists, right? So, if you're selling a commodity and they can get the same thing somewhere else, if you're selling, steel, raw steel by the pound, and they can get the price, they can get a better price somewhere else. Well, then you better find out what it is that you can do to deliver that steel. Maybe it's the delivery, maybe it's the way it's delivered, the size, the format. But all things being equal, then you might have to play on price, right?
Yeah.
But that's a rare thing. Honestly, I think that's a rare thing. Price is usually indicative of just someone wanting to negotiate, and you need to find out why they want to negotiate. You need to understand how they're going to build the value and what it is they're looking for, and why it is that they're willing to pay for your price, or what it is you're going to offer that's going to make sense to them. But really, it's always, whenever you have an objection, it's about to question about that objection, lower resistance, ask them to tell you more. And if you need to go backwards in your sales process and ask more questions and dig deeper, well, then you need to do that. Because anyone who has an objection is not ready to be closed. And if you're not ready to be closed, well, then you need to go back into the situation, back up and find out what it is you can do.
And I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head, which I think it's obviously, I mean, you're the sales expert, but like anybody who has any type of objection is someone who's not really ready to be closed yet. And I mean, there's some valid time, like breaks or whatever, where they sometimes have to go back and get some sort of an approval or whatnot. It's just a delay. It's not really an objection, but you're right. Anybody who has an objection is just not ready to close right now, and you just have to dig deeper. And so what the objection is almost secondary. That's what I'm hearing, is that whether it's a something or a whatever, it's whatever they're choosing, whatever, probably maybe even whatever they're most comfortable with, right? Some people like negotiating, and so they'll pick on price, and some people like getting everybody's opinion, and everybody, and so they'll probably pick what they prefer. You know what I mean? The objection they prefer.
And it's funny, because think of those times you've walked in the old days when you could actually go shopping, when you walk in someone and someone would try to pressure you to buy something, whatever, coffee machine or whatever it was. And usually you end up giving them some lame objection, like, oh, I have one at home, or it doesn't match my wall, or whatever it might be. You're just trying to get rid of the person, right?
Yeah.
But if that salesperson was really good, they'd say, oh, okay, and whatever, or they wouldn't try to be pushy. They'd ask you, well, why are you looking for a coffee machine? What are the important features? And if they find out about you, they'll find out how serious you are. Because if, let's say you're just browsing, you'll just say, hey man, I'm just browsing. I'm not serious today. I'm not yet there yet. I'm just looking around. I'm not ready to make a decision.
Cool.
But objections can happen anytime, and you just have to go backwards in your sales process. You can't rush them through. That's one that you can't rush an objection through, and you can't. If you do that, you build resistance, and most likely you won't get the outcome you're looking for
at the end of the day.
One last example. I remember going in to buy a guitar. Not that long ago, and I went in. It was a guitar I really wanted, and it was nice. I took it off the wall. I started playing it. The sales guy came over to me and I says, "Oh, it's a nice guitar." But I said, "Yeah, I agree." And I was playing with it, and he just asked me. So he asked me a few questions, and right away he figured out I was a buyer. He never had to pressure me. He just asked me the right questions.
Right.
I mean, there are some products that are, it's very personal, and if you want it or not. But good salespeople know which questions to ask you to qualify you and to make sure you're really ready for this thing. And it's
Yeah, yeah.
really
Obviously,
something.
I mean, in anything, right? Even for you, I'm sure you've spoken to some clients that are like, we need a sales consultant, and you happen to be there at the right place at the right time, and the sale process is a lot easier than at other times where people are maybe less aware that they're having issues and stuff like that. And you know what I mean? So same with
Yeah,
me. I've had some clients where everything happened within a week, and we were up and running the next week. And
yeah,
others it's taken months and months of like
yeah.
tweaking and tweaking and doing this and doing a micro project here, and like it just takes a while.
I know exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey, this is great.
Thanks.
Did
That
you
was
have
fun.
more? Did you want to ask more?
No, I think we're good. I think next time, just so that this one doesn't run on too long, we should do maybe some role play, like maybe try to identify like the typical objections that you get and do some role
Yeah,
play around that. I think that would be fun.
I would love to do that. Stay
Uh,
tuned for our
Stay tuned.
next
Part
podcast.
2. All right. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Brad.
everybody. Thanks for listening.